Akash Sureka is the MD of Tavisca, a customer loyalty technology platform which is a division of JPMorgan Chase and Company. Akash has been an entrepreneur and advisor to startups and has a rich and diverse experience across technology and business roles in startups, unicorns, growing companies, as well as large listed companies. So we asked Akash about how he has traversed his career path, how he prepared himself for different roles, and how does he work on his own future relevance. Akash told us about the working backwards philosophy, just like how companies start with a destination postcard and work backwards to figure out what it will take to get to their future destination. Individuals should also think about where they want to be and keep stretching themselves, pushing themselves out of their comfort zones to constantly make progress in the direction of their destination. If you are interested in future relevance, lessons from leaders and organizations, please do check out our website, choose2think.com. That is think with a Q, where you can check out how we can help you and your team stay future relevant. Subscribe to our Telegram channel and our weekly email smart letter. For now, let's listen to Akash share his secrets about how he applied the working backwards philosophy to his professional life. Hi, welcome Akash. Welcome to the CTQ SmartCast.
Thank you, Harish. A very good morning to you.
Yeah, thanks. And after a lot of back and forth, we decided to do this on a Sunday morning. So let's make this Sunday morning worthwhile for both of us and our listeners.
Absolutely. And you should get an advantage of being a friend as a college buddy, right? So,
of course. So that's going to be my biggest challenge today, Akash, of trying to make sure I ask you questions from a third person, third party kind of a view, and not the close view that I have always had about your life and your career. So let me start with this question, and I think this is a great question to start today's interview with. So the journey from an engineer to an entrepreneur to the CEO of a great mid-sized company and to now MD of a JP Morgan company, right? So briefly talk me through this entire journey, Akash.
Yeah, it's not been an easy journey anyways, right? So, but yeah, I think, look, it actually goes back to the roots. In fact, when I was in my 11th and 12th standard, I was actually looking to become a chartered accountant. Okay, by the way, because my mathematics were really good. And, in small towns, when your mathematics are good, the only career option your parents or your families or your nearby will give you that, okay, why don't you become a chartered accountant? Because you're good with the numbers, right? So, and surprisingly, what happened is I was sitting with a friend of mine during my 10th standard farewell party, and he's a very good friend of mine, though we have lost in touch in last few years. But he said, if your maths is good, it doesn't mean that you only have to do or become a chartered accountant, right? There are a lot of other specializations and future career options you can look at. And why do you look at engineering as a career? And I said, why would somebody look at engineering as a career? And I'm talking about this, by the way, in 94, 95 time frame, right? It's like, 25, 30 years since now. So, and that's where I think that conversation actually became much more fruitful. And he could explain what does technology and IT and what is that in future, and I would give heads off to him. He's like a young guy, same age, same class, and he's talking 10 years ahead of me, right? So he's like, okay, so and then I started exploring engineering. So that's how my engineering career actually started, right? So I came in 12, took up electronics, communications, came to Pune, and so on, right? And obviously, even after that, when actually 12th standard, so this was a story in 10th standard, right? When I came to 12th standard, somebody started saying me, why don't you go to, and do, chemical specialization? Why don't you become a chemical engineer? I'm like, okay, when I said engineering does not necessarily mean that I have to do chemical engineering, right? And sitting in labs over there, that's certainly not my interest. But coming again from small towns, sometimes college perceptions are different than the future perceptions, right? So people are, again in a family, okay, beta, why don't you do chemical engineering? It's because that's one of the greatest colleges in Maharashtra or in India, right? So, but again, one other friend of mine came for my rescue, and he's like, yeah, by the way, no offenses, chemical engineer, like for my own rescue, he said, why don't you go to Pune? It's a nice weather. You'll enjoy the college. You do engineering and IT technology because that's what you wanted to do. And I ended up in Pune, and I think that's how we met as well, by the way, in the same college, right? So that's how my engineering career actually started. Obviously, post that, got a placement in Motorola. I was doing electronics, and again, the switch happened because I was doing electronics and VLS at that point of time, very fond of Texas Instruments, Motorola's, and Intels of the world. And just that, it was a 2000, 2001 timeframe, as you know, a great recession that point of time as well. And that helped, in one other way, it helped me to move to my software career in a way, right? So that's how engineering career started, right? But eventually, even when I started that, and maybe you can, give reference to my roots over there. I always wanted to, in my mind frame, I was very clear I want to become a CEO at one point of time, right? Now, whether that CEO would be a professional CEO role or would that be an entrepreneur role, was not defined at that particular point of time, right? And I was not in a hurry. But I think from a mind frame standpoint, I was very much clear that at one point of time, I want to be a CEO. And then as I progressed in my own career and I started becoming more older, obviously entrepreneurial journey was something which I had in my mind as well, right? Which could be pre-CEO, post-CEO, whatever that could be, right? So I think it all started with that. And to make sure that, you would make justice in the future, obviously I took a lot of educational lessons as well. I also engrossed myself into other activities on how do you deal with customers, how do you talk about business. I mean, at one point of time, I was working in a smaller company, and they were so confident on me that I was going and closing the deal. I was going and doing the technology. I was going and doing the delivery. I was going and doing the customer support, right? And I banked upon it. Primarily, I never said no to anything because I said, this is the time to kind of spend more time on some of these activities. And as that's going to be helping you, in the future as well. So grabbed every opportunity that came on my way in different, whether it's technology, whether it's product, whether it's about customer engagement, whether it's about sales sometimes to an extent. Just grabbed it as much as possible, right? And being confident and continuously working on that, continuously learning more and more things. I think that learning phase never stopped for me, and that still happens today. That how do you learn from different people, how do you learn from different opportunities, how do you learn from different scenarios and situations, and keep improving yourself again and again, right? Never putting you on top of anybody, right? At the same point of time, every single person who came in the life becomes a teacher for me, right? As an example. So that's how that journey was laid out, to an extent thoughtful, to an extent non-thoughtful as well, right? But that's how, started as an engineer, started taking up more roles. At one point of time, obviously then looking at some opportunities, got into entrepreneurial journey as well, ran it for some time, got an exit with a listed company in India, and then kind of evolving to a CEO role, which eventually I wanted to do, right? And at one point of time, sometimes people ask that, if you started one company, why didn't you one more, right? And I took one more pause because even in entrepreneurial journey, I didn't want to kind of go just like that. So I took, quite an amount of time, like 8-9 years, to kind of get myself prepped up and get into entrepreneur role. Similarly, to get into again, a CEO role, I wanted to kind of explore such roles, so that as you grow forward, in your life, and if you don't want to do one more venture or third venture, you can grow in those roles as well. So learning from smaller companies and mid-sized companies across business, tech, product, ecosystem, that's how that constant churn of learning, always used to happen. And that was quite mindful also, how do I wanted to progress. So I think that's how that journey has come along. I think I'm still young, by the way. I don't know about you, but I'm still young. So a lot more things to come in the future. Very excited what's happening across the world. a lot of opportunities in as a CEO, in as an entrepreneur in the future. So right, and we'll constantly work towards that. I feel that maybe this is one more life to start with, and there are so many things to be done, right? With JP Morgan now, obviously, as the acquisition has happened, we have to do so many things. We are scaling up. It's a hyperscale for us, hyper growth. We have to do a lot of things, both from a technology standpoint, both from market standpoint, and it's going to be an humongous learning opportunity again, right? Working in a different ecosystem altogether that way. So,
Right.
so yeah, that's how the journey has been, and I hope it continues similar way.
Yeah, yeah. So, Akash, couple of things struck me. One was how you mentioned that there was a deliberate direction that you wanted to take, but you also wanted to spend time, learning the ropes, learning the basics before you take up that next milestone. And during that duration, it was more about grabbing all the opportunities that came your way and not picking and choosing something, right? So that was very
Yes.
interesting. In fact, I remember, when we used to speak, I think back in 2003 and 4, what you were doing was the kind of work that the standard engineering, individual contributor kind of a role person would do, right?
Yeah.
Filing for patents and doing that kind of highly technical work, right? But then
Yes.
you had this in your roadmap somewhere, right? That you wanted to be a CEO. So just talk me through how should people actually do these kind of things where they are excelling at what they are doing right now, but having that vision that yeah, this is where we want to be. So that requires taking up opportunities, taking up things that are pushing you out of your comfort zone and doing this, because there are two aspects to it. One is you being ready for it, and the other being company being ready to give you that responsibility
Yeah.
and that challenge as well, right? How should you build that confidence in others to be able to do that?
Yeah, no, and I think, look, sometimes there is no straight answer for this, but this is as good as your education system as well, right? And this goes back to your backward planning, right? As an example, so if you want to become, as an example, even engineer, or if you want to become a chartered accountant, or if you want to become a doctor, right? You start backward planning, right? You start putting up yourself in that shoe 7, 8 years, before you take specializations for that, right? You focus on certain subjects versus other subjects, right? You focus on that environment and ecosystem, where do you want to be? And we sometimes do this inherently even when we are in schools and colleges, right? People who are really focused on what do they want to do 10 years from now or 5 years from now. And it's the same thing which applies to your other career options as well, right? It's all about how do you do your backward planning, right? So if you're certain in your mind frame that 5 years from now, I want to become, obviously, let's say for an example, as a CEO of a small or a mid-size or a bigger company. So what does those characteristics entails to, right? And for those characteristics, what are the plannings you have to do? And for those plannings, then how do you want to start coming out of your existing comfort zone and looking at other options as well? Now, for that, you may have to do a lot of movements as well, particularly, right? Because if you are in a specific zone in your current state, that zone may not allow you, because of different other parameters, to start exploring other things as well, right? So you have to kind of come out of that zone, broader your zone a bit. You have to meet people. You have to be more open. You have to be kind of learning more and more things. And based on those parameters, you have to start focusing on other things as well, right? And then execute on that, by the way, right? So it's just not about you reading about it, or it's just not about talking people about it. It is also about how do you personally execute on that, right? As an example. So if you're a technologist today, as an example, and then 5 years from now you want to become somebody, so as a technologist, can you go and talk to your customer? That's the first thing you can, least you can do, in fact, right? Then as you start talking to the customer, can you take an additional responsibility of doing a revenue expansion with the customer, right? As an example. Then can you start engagement with your marketing teams? Can you start engaging with your finance teams? Can you start engaging with your sales teams and so on, right? That's how you have to start broadening your horizon while executing it, in real time. If you don't do that, if you just only talk, if you only meet people, if you only read about it, and you're not allowing yourself to come out and actually doing it on the ground, without being very specific about it, because that's the whole learning zone, right? You have to be very open. You have to listen to people. You may not be right in those zones because you were right in one zone, but you may not be right in other zone. So that's how I think it's all about how do you do a backward planning, and then how do you execute on that, and at the same point of time you're open and you're engaging your other stakeholders to start understanding that whole ecosystem of your future role. And as long as you can do that, I think that's where you start realizing that you're making a progress in that direction. And I'm sure if you excel at it, obviously it has to deal with your competency, then your capability, then your execution success outcome as well. If you show those check marks, in that ladder, you are certainly, in the right direction to achieve what you want to achieve, as part of that role. And that's what exactly I also did. I was never stuck as a technologist, though even today I'm a technologist, right? So don't mind, I can go and I can do a blueprint of any large solution, the same way as a hands-on architect will do today, right? I can go and talk to fresh college engineers who will come out with great ideas and still do that, right? And that's what I think you can keep that as your core advantage, by the way, but spread your wings, and execute on those other areas to become what you want to become.
Right, right. I think that working backwards philosophy is excellent. Again, made very popular by Amazon. These days with the book about how do you actually start with the end goal and then work backwards.
Right.
We've all heard about it. I think yours is a great example of actually having lived that as well, and live to create a T-shaped career where you have your distinct advantage, your expertise, but you've also expanded yourself. It is not a very narrow focus area for yourself, right? So that's fantastic.
And in fact, to your point of those goals, right? You're right. Amazon, and it's all everybody. It's whether it's a company or it's an individual or some great examples. By the way, I'm still a small fish in the pond, right? But even if you take at great people, that's how they have looked at it many point of time. And I think one thing to remember is set higher goals and work towards it, right? So as long as you keep on setting higher goals and keep on working towards it, you will end up to a goal which may not be so high as what you've thought about, but you'll still end up achieving the goal what you wanted to achieve, right? So, but the idea is set 100% higher goals than your actual goal.
Correct. Yeah, I think that desire to push yourself, I think it's it's what makes people different. People who have achieved something, that desire to push themselves out of their comfort zone. I think it's very easy for people to say no, this is good, whatever I'm doing, because it's like the standard rate of growth, right? You keep doing this, you will get somewhere. Obviously, you'll get somewhere because things are going well. But if you want to make that jump, you need to think differently as well. So on that note, Akash, I know that you're also looked up to by entrepreneurs, founders who come to you for advisory around building product, building companies. While you are a CEO yourself, and like you said, you are an I would say you are an engineering CEO, if there is a term like that, who is equally good at engineering as well as managing the business side of it, right? So how do you manage all these things? Are there different hats that you wear, different personalities that you take to these, different kinds of, demands of these roles that you have?
I think, in fact, to an extent, yes. So look, when you work with startups, the context is very different, right? When you work with emerging entrepreneurs, the context is very different because the ecosystem is sometimes different. The pool of resources is different. the opportunities are different, the level of mindsets required are different. So I can't, when I am advising somebody, from a product company standpoint or a entrepreneur standpoint, I can't have my same CEO hat, because me as a CEO in a company, I might have abundance of resources. I might have a very different ecosystem. I may have a different set of stakeholders to deal with, and that's not true for that particular company or a founder I'm advising, right? So absolutely, I have to wear a different hat. I have to bring in my whole experience of what I've done in the past. I have to bring in my current experience as well, how the world looks at it, right, at the same point of time, because being part of bigger companies sometimes does give you a natural inherent advantage of knowing a lot more things which a founder at that particular stage may not know, right? And also the networks, what you have and what you learn from them and so on. So you have to wear a different hat. You have to be more, I would say, collaborative in nature, with that particular founder or company, and listen more, and then act. Because sometimes as a CEO, you have to achieve something and you have some plan in your mind and you kind of want to execute on that very rigorously, right? Otherwise, sometimes it becomes difficult in a large environment to achieve your outcomes, right? But you can't do that in the same startup environment. So yes, you have to wear different hats. You have to bring different experience, your past nature of in that particular zone, then combine it with what you're in the current zone, and make that as a package for that particular entrepreneur or company to take an advantage of that. And at the end of the day, I always say that as an advisor, and I've been sitting on boards earlier as well, I have been more keeping the decision making with the founders, right? And because they are the best people to judge, pick up what makes sense, and then execute on that, right? And so that's how, as you kind of manage some of these other activities around you, it helps those people as well. And at the same point of time, it helps me, because I said, I think this learning never stops, right? You get to learn so many other things. Even if you would have gone through similar situation or similar context or similar phase in your life earlier, every new context brings a different learning for you, right? So, and that can help me as well to eventually do something on what I'm doing currently or what I'm going to do in the future, right? So it's always a cross pollination of learning opportunities, and you have to wear that hat as well. The hat is not always about advising somebody else, but the hat also is, how do you pick up, how do you learn few things which are new things for you as well. So you have to keep on wearing those hats. Absolutely, yes.
Right, right. So, one thing that I've clearly, gleaned from what you've said is being open and having that learning mindset. But were there any other mindset changes that you thought you had to make in yourself to be able to get to this point where you are, doing these different kinds of things? How was the journey in terms of just preparing yourself from a mindset point of view?
I mean, the answer is tricky, and this goes back to the to the same thought where we started this call with. But see, I think from a mindset point of view, it's largely, Harish, about whether you want to learn more. I think that's the way to start with, as opposed to whether you want to give back more, right? I mean, and my mindset is whether you want to learn more. And I think that is the main framework in my mind which I follow. And because of which, it teaches you to be humble with people, because of which it teaches with you to be more collaborative with people. It teaches you to not be more prescriptive about what you want to do versus, more collaborative of what you want to do, and so on, right? And at the same time, keep learning. So I think that mindset of open to learn at any stage of your life, helps to get into these different roles at different point of times, primarily, right? And that has always worked for me, at least. So.
Right. Another thing that's struck me, Akash, was when we started this conversation, you spoke about these, two, three anecdotes about your friend telling you something in class 10, and then someone else talking to you about engineering. So clearly you remember, these, incidents, these, anecdotes. So is reflection a large part of what you do in terms of learning as well? Do you look back at how things have progressed, and do you say, okay, this is the lesson that I draw from here, from my stint in this company, these are the, big learnings for me. These are things that I could have done differently. How do you do that? Do you take notes? Do you think about it? Do you set aside time for this?
No, some of these are just like swimming lessons, Harish, right? So once you know swimming, you can't forget swimming, right? That's that's how it is. So no, strictly, I take very less notes, by the way, unless if it's a professional working context, right? Sometimes you have to take notes over there. But no, some of the life lessons are just like swimming lessons, right? You just learn them and you never forget about it. And you keep on working on that again and again, right? So, but yeah, I mean, there's no method or there's no framework to that primarily, right? As I said, you just have to, if you are in that journey as what I am in, you'll inherently, remember some of the past failures or learnings or success or gaps or differences or your friends or your network or your family who have helped you in different type of of your life. So I think no specific hack around it, and I'm sure inherently as a human being we'll just remember some of these things as long as you're in your career of progression every single point of time, right? So if you are working towards, as I said, higher goals every single point of time, no matter if you're a CEO, no matter if you're a unicorn founder, no matter if you're a startup founder and so on, as long as you have that mindset, you'll keep on remembering all of those things and you'll make sure that you are doing better in your next role. So
Right. All right. Okay. So, we'll make a slight digression now, Akash, and now I want you to wear your advisor kind of a hat and talk to me about how tech founders should be thinking about building their business, right? So, what we've seen often that engineering, founders, they have this tendency, the default is to start building a product, look at it from a very engineering mindset kind of a view, and they fail to look at the other side of things like, networking, working on the business instead of working in the business, right? So how should these people who probably don't have a systemic background of doing these kind of things, because of the way our entire education system is organized, that you just go write these exams, solve these problems, and you think marks are what life is, right? But when you start looking at things like business, it becomes different. Suddenly there are so many other things that are at play, and that's where again these people need to be pushed outside of their comfort zone. So how would you advise these engineering slash tech founders to get better at these other skills?
Yeah, and by the way, that framework is nowadays changing. Okay, I see a lot of young smart engineers are doing much better job than maybe our generation, right? Correct. So maybe we were the ones who were not following the way it should be. But I mean, I see that change, by the way, when I meet a lot of young founders now, I've been investing into few as well. So I've seen that dramatic change wherein a lot of these young engineers by heart are thinking about business, are thinking about investments, they're thinking about expansion, they're thinking about building large companies in different ways, and they're going out of their zones already, right? But for those who are still not in that mind frame as of today, I think essentially again you have to see what kind of company you want to build in, right? I remember when I started my first company, and obviously I had lesser learnings that time. I was looking to more build an IP-centric company, right? Wherein you build IPs, you build great products and technologies, you get more patents. And again, to an extent, it was an engineering mindset, to build an IP-centric company. And there was nothing wrong about it because there are a lot of IP-centric companies globally, right? But at the same point of time, because we wanted to build a company as well, we started doing our sales from day one, by the way. I started meeting my potential customers and clients and stakeholders, including investors from day one, when we kickstarted on the ground. So I think for engineers, it is, again, important that what do you want to achieve? You want to build a great company. If you want to build a great company, inherently, other than building a great product, you have to build great customers, you have to get great investors sometimes, you have to build a great ecosystem, right? And to do that, you have to start putting yourself into those shoes from day one as opposed to later point of time, right? So you can't think, okay, let me build a product for 2 years and then I'll start doing some of these things. Absolutely no chance of doing that way, because then the probability of failures become much more higher, because you just don't even know what you're building is right or wrong, right? So I think it just about as an engineer, can you think outside of the box of your product and tech? And essentially, these are all smart folks, by the way, right? All engineers are smart folks.
Yes.
Because we're engineers. but so it's just about getting out of that shoe a bit and kind of exploring more. And it's just about learning. And sometimes, by the way, the other important gap is somebody might feel that because I can build a great product, I can also build a great company. And sometimes for some people, because of the human nature, may not be true. So, and hence that's where you need some great co-founders or great leadership eventually, right? And you would have seen Facebook as a good example. Mark Zuckerberg make sure that he built a great leadership, got Sheryl Sandberg, who built a great company along with him. A lot of other companies wherein founders knew their limitations as technologists. They made sure they had the counterparts to take care of other things which they can't do, right? And that has been a great success. So first is you need to decide whether you are ready to take up some of those additional things around engineering, other than engineering. And if you are not, then you have to make sure that you have right people working with you as co-founders or as your team members, and give them all freedom to execute on those lines to build a great company. So it's either of the two. And sometimes, look, there are people who say that this is my zone and I want to stick to my zone. And I may not want to come out of that zone, and which is fair. Sometimes as a human nature, which is fair, right? There's nothing wrong or right about it. But if you're deciding to be in a particular zone, then you need to make sure that you have other people to take care of other zones, right? And for some founders that has worked out well, and for other founders that will work out as well. And hence, as you go out, whether it's your customer or whether it's about your investor, they do look out at what's your team, and that's very much to the same point, whether the team as holistic makes sense for building a great company, right? As opposed to just one single person. So and there are solo founder examples. Solo founder examples has been largely because they were able to pull all the things together, whether it's engineering, product, technology, sales, marketing, customers, investors, and so on. But if you're not, then you have to get right people along with you.
Right. Yeah. I think it again boils down to the whole working backwards philosophy, right? Where do you want to be? And then that decides what game you want to play, right? And then are you cut out to play that game? If not, do you want to add more people to your team to play that game? I think it just boils down to that.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Correct.
Yeah. So Akash, coming to your current role at Tavisca, right? Tavisca has been one of the great places to work, listed as a great place to work. Now it's a JPMorgan company. What is your contribution right now at Tavisca? If I were to ask you, what are the top 3 contributions that you are making at Tavisca? I know it sounds like an existential question, but please go ahead.
No, I no, and well, this is something which I am breathing every single day, right? So for me, I have a very clear priority: build a world-class platform, right? So we are into a loyalty and a space, and travel as one of our lever, and then obviously non-travel as we expand. So building a world-class platform, because we are the ones who's building a global platform from India, from Pune, from Tavisca. And we continue to up our, raise our bar on that day by day. Second priority is to build an operational excellence around it, right? So the only way to scale, to grow, and to build great platforms is do you have right excellence in nature in your all of your operational workflows in your teams, in your workings, in your customers engagement, and so on, right? And the third one is to build a people, culture, right? So, as you build great culture, as you have right people, you will eventually build great products. You will eventually have right excellence in nature. You will have right customers and, right engagement and right businesses moving forward. So it's all about people end of the day, right? So those are the three top priorities we keep on working about. We always talk about how do we make our platform world class. We always talk about how do we have right excellence as we scale. And then thirdly, as we do that, and by the way, this is not in a priority order, right? This is all at the same priorities.
Correct.
So, and then how do you have a right people culture to give them freedom, to give them some autonomy to work, to give them right environment, to build those excellence and platforms, right? So those are our three top priorities. And that's where it has helped us to even get recognized as great place to work earlier as well before the acquisition, right? So and that's how we'll keep on pushing ourselves very hard on those three top priorities as we expand. So
right. So Akash, can you give me some concrete examples of how you ensure that the team actually gets a great culture? You are building that great culture at Tavisca. Can you give me some concrete examples of what people outside of Tavisca can look forward to in a company like Tavisca?
Yeah, so this goes back to the saying, right? We have this whole freedom, autonomous, and respect sort of a culture, right? Wherein we go after some goals as opposed to day by day how we really making it more stringent and making it more difficult for people to achieve that, right? So it's just that we all coming together and making sure that we're working towards that goal together and providing all help we can, whether it's about getting the right leadership for them, whether it's getting the right environment for them, whether it's getting about right tools and framework in the mind, whether it's giving the right, and as I said, environment to work upon or work in. So I think all goes well. And we do this day by day very well, so I can't pick up one single example and say that this is where we're doing it, because we're doing this, our freedom, the autonomous culture, and the respect. We do this in every single thing what we do. We do that during COVID as well. We made sure that the right vaccination drives. We made sure that we are looking at their families as well at the same point of time. Constantly seeking how their families are doing, because many times even if the employees were doing good, their families were not doing good, by the way, right? So we made sure that we are sending some token of appreciation for their families as well, and so that they can get well, all sort of support required. So this is all because we want to give right environment to work, at the same time give them more freedom to work upon, and so on. So in our case, we that way our demography is also very young, and hence it becomes easier to inculcate some of this culture many a times, because as a young generation, they're always open and always seek freedom on what they have to do. So whether it's about a technology product, as long as it is aligned with the company and the business goals, a lot of times people have that whole way of freedomness and that autonomous nature to build and create and deliver on those things, right? So I mean, we've been applying this every single place, every single thing what we do in our company. So
right. And how have things changed post March 2020?
Well, so I think it's a $1 million question, right? So I think things have changed dramatically in a way that you have lost personal touch with people, right? And the importance of being more trustworthy has never been so important earlier, right? So I think for us, our level of trust has gone very high, by the way, versus what it was earlier. And that has helped us to sail through properly. post 2020. But yeah, I think that was one of the single most change which we have seen after 2020. We've not seen people from long time. We're still working together. Everybody is remote, as hopefully by early next year, people will start seeing some faces. But at the same time, how do you build trust? And then how do you build that cushion of freedomness so that people are working around the same goals without any problem? So I think people management has been a very different ball game post 2020 versus pre 2020, right? Rest, I think things have been largely same, right? You had Zoom earlier as well, you had Teams earlier as well, you had your Slack also earlier. So I think most of those things were constant. What changed is the people, right? And managing people, gaining their trust, putting trust in them, has been a very different experience post 2020. So it has been, I would say, look, it has not been easy. It has been very tough, very hard as well. But yeah, we could sail through, with those changes, and we are constantly working. And maybe this is a good learning even when people start coming in the office, right? Mm-hmm. It's a different learning when last 12 to 18 months, and it's important to apply those learnings even when people come in the offices, right? So how do you make sure that your trust levels are same? How do you make sure that you still give them that particular freedom, even if you start seeing them face to face, and so on, right? Even if you look at just not from a CEO point of view, but a simple managerial and their teams, right? Earlier, when you're in office, maybe a manager is sometimes slightly hard and constantly seeking inputs from the teams, and maybe sometimes trust levels are low. Maybe sometimes the involvement is more. But now, this would have give more learnings to the managers, and they would treat and they would work very differently with their team members in a way, right? So some of those people aspects have changed post 2020. And I think it is essential that we use those learnings and apply them even when they are face to face, sometime next year.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a fascinating point, Akash, because we've been helping companies both with propagating their culture at work through different things, and we've also been helping some companies decide their return to work policy. I say work because it is still open, whether it's going to be hybrid, whether it's going to be fully remote or back in office. They're just trying to figure this out. And one thing that we've been trying to get these people to think about is, it's been a fundamental change. Take all the positives from what has happened in the last 18 months and apply them to whatever you're going to do next, right? Because that is what is going to define your future of work. So according to you, what is the future of work at Tavisca?
You're putting me on spot, okay?
Yes.
So
no easy questions here, Akash.
Yeah, so I may restrain from what we're going to do for Tavisca per se, but I think, look, in my mind, you have to look in the context. Okay, obviously, by the way, there are many companies who were fully remote even before COVID. Correct. And they have done a fabulous way of collaboration and still be successful, right? And obviously companies and many other companies were fully in the office, and they have been obviously successful, right? I think in my mind, those two models might work in the future. Either you are fully remote, or you are fully in a way in an office, right? Hybrid would work in a different context. So I'm not saying that hybrid won't work, but this is my personal thought right now, and we have to see how it will evolve. Hybrid will work as a cross-location strategy versus when I say location, I'm restricting location to a country, right? So now it wouldn't matter in which zone of the world you are in, right? Somebody could be in US, somebody could be in Europe, somebody could be in India, and still do the same work at the same velocity. So I think from a hybrid standpoint, I feel that the cross-country hybrid model may still work and would still work in a different way. So, and however, if you're in the same country, there might be need of being at a particular location, where all the people are. And this is just because, look at some of the nitty-gritties as you start looking at it. I mean, imagine you and me, we are sitting in an office, and one of our team members is sitting outside, right? Obviously, that particular team member might feel a siloed feeling, right? Because then inherently, when you're in the same room, you talk about few things, your voices are not model like that. That person may not hear about it, and that person might feel, what, I am either intentionally being left out, or I'm just left out because I'm just not in that same room, right? That may push people to be in the same location, is where my thought is, right? So I'm not saying that hybrid model is wrong. I'm just saying that at a ground level, when you start executing on that, people will start feeling siloed. And that may turn out to be a churning point for those people, because then that person might feel, you know what, I feel like I'm not adding value because I'm sitting in a different location. So let me look out for something in my own town or in my own city, right? So I think from a company standpoint, company should be very clear what do they want to do. If it's an office, be in office. If it's a remote, go fully remote. If it's in a hybrid, you will turn out on the risk of what I've just mentioned, whether people getting left out, people feeling siloed, people feeling they're not getting engaged appropriately. And then that is increasing the risk of attrition as well. And people themselves who feel that they want to work hybrid, I think for them, they also have to explore some of these nitty-gritties, whether that will work for them, right? And by the way, after these 18 months, many people are anyway wanting to come back because they want to see faces, they want to get off their families, they want to get off their houses. But yeah, there are a lot of people who wants to look at working from remote. I don't think there is a straight answer. Companies will have to be liberal based on how people want, as long as people are comfortable with that. I think that's what I would end up that model with. If people are comfortable with working and still feeling that yes, they are engaged, they are feeling not siloed, they're not feeling separation, and that's not adding risk of attrition. If people are comfortable, committed, confident, then I think it makes sense. But if not, then it may not work for some companies. It may work from some companies, and this is no single rule getting applied to all, right? So some will have different way of working, some will have different way of working, and it will all depend on that context and the nature of people, right? The nature of people may also vary from company to company. There will be certain nitty-gritties, but I would say, I mean, we being providing a people-centric culture, we just want to do what people are comfortable with. And whether that comfort is a commitment and confidence, as opposed to just because I'm lazy.
Right. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, the next 2 to 3 years is going to be, very tricky, in the sense that both companies and people will have to be very open and not fixated on one thing or the other.
Yeah.
Companies cannot be
Yes.
fixated, and people also cannot be fixated there. This is the only way I'm going to work, because things are going to evolve, and you will see repercussions. You're actually going to see the churn numbers and all 6 months, 12 months down the line, right? Then there will be some changes in policies, and then you'll again try to recalibrate. So I expect the next 2 to 3 years as this state of flux, where everyone is going to try and figure out what works best for them. I think that is very key, because given their nature, probably even given their expertise levels as well, right? For some people, the company may want to change their policies because they don't want to lose those individuals as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to be
And
tricky.
I think, look, the main problem will come up between tier 1 and tier 2 towns, right?
Correct.
See, tier 1 towns, it's not much a problem, because many times, at least larger organizations like us, we have presence in Bangalore, we have presence in Hyderabad, in Delhi, in Mumbai, in
Right.
Pune. So in a way, we have presence in a lot of tier 1 towns already. So people are anyways working in those towns, so we have certain flexibility
Correct.
around it. But when it comes to tier 2, where the problem will start coming around, right? So where people want to come out of tier 2 and be part of tier 1 again. Some people, it would have been life-changing lesson for them last 18 months, so they might not want. and so on. So that's where the problems will come. And within those problems of separation, then how does this work out? Maybe it's better that people experience it. Both companies also experience it, as you rightly said, and let people also experience it, and then take a call with what's working and what's not working, and then decide about it. And I think that's how I agree with you. That's how we'll have to look around next year, what's really working, and then how people are getting comfortable with, and then start making sense, right? So
yeah. So on a similar note, Akash, given everything that is happening in the world, right? The way people work, all society, technology, everything is changing. So future relevance becomes very important. How do you stay relevant tomorrow, and what can you do about it today in order to be relevant tomorrow? So how do you ensure people at Tavisca are staying future relevant? How do you work towards that?
right. So yeah, so and I see the relevance of future may vary from company to company,
Correct.
right? So for us, our relevancy of the future is obviously more technology centric right now. How do we become more and more cloud native, right? So we are training our people. We are asking people to do a lot of courses. We're trying to convert our people from one stack to full stack, and kind of asking them to become future relevant. When we are all cloud, as an example. Obviously, cybersecurity is another area wherein we are training our people around all the cyber postures and dependencies and problem statements and what is future cyber state would look like and so on. So we're investing a lot on that as well, and getting our people trained and ready for that. We, as I said, we continuously keep on evolving or building world-class platforms. So what does that platform look like? What does it require to build that platform for next 3 years? And how does that mindset should be? What are those skills required? So we keep on training our people and investing on that as well, right? So that's how I think it's all about investing into our people, building up their skills, giving them right environment to kind of be ready for the future. That's our context, by the way, right? And obviously, I can't disclose our business goals over there, but based on those business goals, we're investing into our people relatively to be ready for that. So it's all about how do you invest, how do you again the same philosophy, how do you work backwards, how do you then train your people, how do you give them right environment to learn constantly day by day and constantly thinking about it, right? And then executing on it, so you're ready when that day comes of the future relevancy. So we are doing all that in our context. These are some of the points where we are investing a lot to be relevant for the future in terms of technology, business, product, and so on.
Right. And for you individually, how are you looking at your own future relevance as well? What are you doing today in order to be relevant, say in 2025, 2030?
So no, that's a great question. So for me, it's about how do you take larger roles from here, right? So obviously you get inspired with people like Satya, by Sundar Pichai and Shantanus of the world and so on, right? I'm looking at them for inspiration, and then maybe at one point of time you achieve that stage in your life, and work towards it. So I'm hoping it happens, and then let's see. But that's how I'm looking at myself from 5 years, 10 years from now. That whether you can achieve similar state in your life, right? So
Right. And how does your day look like today?
So my day, obviously, I'm in a way fitness freak. So my day starts with my 60 minutes. Sometimes it starts with, sometimes I have to juggle in between. But that's one of the important activity of my day. And then I have to spend some time with my key leaders every day on different aspects of the business and our company. And then third, spend time with some other people, kind of to understand and make them explain, where are we heading, what we're supposed to do, and how to do it right way. And then keep on working on those three priorities, right? So building that world-class platform, excellence, and then people culture. So constantly thinking and executing day by day on what you have to do with the help of your leaders and your team members, right? So yeah, I think it starts with fitness. It eventually ends up with a long sleep after the day, but but in a way, during the day, talk to your HR, talk to your, because that's where the peopleness come into picture, right? Then you talk to your technology leaders, because that's where we're trying to build a world-class platform, and then working with other divisions of the company to get the operational excellence, right? So all our investments, including my investment, is based on those three priorities every single day, working with those different people, in different divisions. So.
Yeah. All right, Akash. So we've come to the end of this. I'm going to end this with my last section where I will ask you for your hot take on the future relevance of, whatever I ask you for. These could be terms, words, things, right? So first question is, what do you think is the future relevance of customer loyalty?
Uh, the relevance in the terms of what significance of priority, or
How things are going to change in that whole.
yeah. So I think, look, customer loyalty is the only retention currency for anybody, right? So the future relevance of customer loyalty is very high. Every single company has to think about loyalty and engagement for their end users, because that's the only way they can scale their business. That's the only way they can have stickiness with their users. That's the only way they can learn from the users and do more for the users. So absolutely great things to come around for customer loyalty, and lot more companies will focus more and more on that. With today's competitive world and ecosystem, it becomes much more important for people to have right loyalty engagements and programs for their end users, right? Otherwise, it's just so tough to retain the users. So this will go to a different scale altogether as we move forward. So.
Okay. What is the future relevance of engineering managers?
That's tricky. So with this whole low code, no code thing, which is coming out in the future, it's gonna be tricky. So I think engineering managers, going back to our other conversation, engineering managers would start wanting to look out at different hats as the dependency on technologies, thanks to artificial intelligence, may go in different direction altogether. We don't know that future 10 years from now. So the relevance of engineering obviously will stay, and I would rather call them as technology managers versus engineering managers, because the flavors of technologies will keep on changing. Today it's codeful. Tomorrow it would be codeless. But the technology will still remain, right? So you still have to be good in that particular technology to do something about it. So the relevancy of engineering managers will be more of technology managers. And then within as technology managers, how do you wear different hats at the same point of time to stay relevant, right? And I know one company who asks every engineering manager, by the way, to talk to the clients. In fact, they switch the roles, that every month they ask their technology folks, their engineering managers, to become customer success managers and talk to the customers, right? So I think the relevance of engineering managers will be there as technology, and if you can engage with your clients and customers the same way an account management would do today, or a customer success team would do that, then only I think there is a relevancy for them 10 years from now.
Right. Okay. What is the future relevance of these traditional startup bases like Silicon Valley, Bangalore, Pune, Delhi NCR, Hyderabad? Are they still going to be the centers for startups, or things are going to change?
No, I think that's already happening, by the way, Harish, right? So there are a lot of startups coming out from tier 2 towns, and they're already unicorns now, right? There are startups from Jaipur, I'm forgetting about other cities, right? So I think there are a lot of, I think it's all about spread beyond tier 1. We will see startups coming out of tier 2 towns and becoming unicorns. So the relevancy is just not tier 1 now, it's anywhere. And thanks to all this whole remote way of selling and remote way of working, it's just helping that point to a great extent. So I think the relevancy of startups is everywhere and anywhere primarily. So.
Right. Okay. And final one, Akash, and this is going to be a bit of left of field, but I know it's of your interest. What is the future relevance of one-day cricket?
It's a relevance of one-day cricket. So it would have been easy if you would have asked what the future relevance of Test cricket or one-day
That's why I
cricket.
didn't ask you that, no?
Look, I'm in favor of 2020. So I see less relevance of one-day cricket, to be honest.
Okay. On that note, Akash, I think it was a fantastic chat. Sunday morning well spent for both of us. I think 1 hour long conversation. Time literally flew. I actually just checked how long it was, and it was 1 hour. So great insights, Akash. I think there is a lot for people to learn from your own career arc as well as how you have thought about it. I think that working backwards philosophy is great. People have generally done that in the context of companies, but that's essentially what you need to do for your personal career and personal journeys as well. So a lot of takeaways from this interview, Akash. Thanks a lot for this.
Thank you so much, Harish, and always pleasure talking to you.